With world-class expertise and local insight, Dexus creates value, not just for today, but long into tomorrow.
From Barangaroo Studios, the AusBiz COB is the key stuff you need to know about the day in business and finance.
Hello and welcome to the COB on this Monday kind of Tuesday as we get across what has developed in the markets on the first trading day of the week, with the CBO 200 finishing up 0.75%. Similar moves we've seen on the ASX 200 and tantalisingly close to a record high there on the ASX 200 with global sentiment buoyed overnight, certainly with expectations there will be some sort of breakthrough in those trade negotiations between the US and China, which they're underway in London. They're expected to resume very shortly, in fact, those trade talks. So, in fact, we get to our three themes of the day, and yeah, we are expecting those calls from London. London is calling as far as market listening out to what we're going to hear from those talks. High energy, referring to one of the best sectors on the local market today, has been energy, certainly buoyed by what we're hearing from those talks, but more generally with the oil price moving higher, and those uranium miners, again, moving significantly higher as well, with taking the ASX, as I said, very close to a new record, which, we hit that way back in February before all this trade drama played out. Let's get to those sectors that are moving. I mentioned energy, one of the primary movers behind those index today, with Woodside up 1%, Amplitude obviously the pick there. Elsewhere, gold, interesting what's played out in that sector today. We've got actually Northern Star finishing in the green, but Newmont and Evolution sold off heavily today. The gold price did come off once again off the back of expectations perhaps of some sort of trade resolution. In the tech space, that was very positive today also. NextDC updated the market there with its latest capacity there, with obviously moving into its development, particularly a data center it's building in Malaysia at the moment. Zip, also a bit of a barometer of, I guess, the broader market, so up more than 6% in today's trade. Just catching up with those stories making news. NextDC saying recent contract wins mean the company's pro forma contracted utilisation has increased by 16 megawatts, or some 7%. Westpac appointing Philippa Greenwood to its boards, and we did see all the bank shares higher across the board. The CBA close to $181 a share. Insurer Suncorp has gained. Morgan Stanley lifted the price target of CSL and named Cameron Price as independent non-executive director. Whitehaven Coal rising after Jefferies hiking its price target. Whereas Domino's Pizza at near 11-year lows after a downgrade on the price targets from Morgan Stanley, and Monash IVF falling to 4.5-year lows on a second incident involving an incorrect embryo transfer. That comes after a mistake earlier in the year, so 25% lower today. And EZZ Life Sciences, we spoke to them a little earlier, that has soared on a close to $14 million distribution deal in Southeast Asia. And Botanics Pharmaceuticals rising on $30 million debt facility with Creos Capital. All right, let's unpack what we've seen on the market today. David Lane joining us from Odd Minute. David, welcome. Good. Normally I'm talking to you at the beginning of the day, so good to catch up with you at the end as we bookend.
Yeah, great to be here.
All right, so we're pretty close to those record highs, aren't we?
Yeah, certainly are. It's been a positive day right across the board. The only index, or the only sector as part of the index that was down, were industrials. So, yeah, pretty positive right across the market today, possibly because we've had 2 trading days crammed into one this week. But, that optimism about the possibility of there being some some deals done between the US and China, I suppose, is is what's giving the market a little bit of positivity today.
How pivotal are those talks in London? And I guess if we discuss the likely scenarios, either, I mean, it's more of the same, talks will continue, this is going to be drawn out, they strike a deal, particularly with rare earths, or it's all off. What do you see? How do you see this playing out?
Well, I think it will be pivotal one way or the other. And at the moment, the market is looking at that taco trade. As much as Donald Trump doesn't like that term, the Trump always chickens out is what the market is anticipating. And it certainly seems like China is playing their cards fairly hard, and they're not backing down too easily. We've also seen new president in South Korea, and President Xi from China has been talking to South Korea about ensuring that they stick together and look for multilateral trade, and that trade around the world is important for both China and South Korea. So I think it will be very interesting to see who has the upper hand, and I think it's possible that we do see a bit of a watering down of the tariffs that were proposed a couple of months ago, and definitely that's obviously what the market is anticipating.
Now, another sector on the move is energy. How are you viewing that at the moment? I mean, in particular, those very volatile uranium stocks higher again today, but also we've seen it more broadly across the energy sector.
Yes, you're right. The uranium stocks have done well again. A bit more short covering, I think, is happening there. That was the most shorted sector a month or so ago, and we're seeing some buying returning there with the view that uranium, although it's not going to be a part of the picture as far as Australia is concerned, for the rest of the world, uranium and nuclear energy will continue to be part of that energy transition. And then more locally, I think that the oil and gas stocks have done quite well with the oil price rising overnight. We see that there is value in a lot of those oil stocks, in particular the big stocks, Woodside and Santos, which have had a good day today, but generally are still pretty undervalued compared to many of the stocks on the market. And I think that's obviously catching a bit of investor interest because of the value that we're seeing there.
Now the banks, dare I say, are again today. I think we're at another record for CBA. I think we're at $181.
Yeah, certainly no value there.
But I mean, it just definitely keeps going, doesn't it?
A lot of interest. Look, it really just seems to be the weight of money and the index play, money going into the Australian market. CBA is now over 10% of the overall index, so that's where a lot of the money goes. We've been saying for I can't even think how long that CBA is overvalued. They're now worth over $300 billion, and the market cap of CBA itself is larger than the three other major banks. So it certainly continues to rally. We've been saying for a while to sell into that rally, but then every time we do it, you're made to look a little bit foolish. So the momentum is definitely with CBA and the other banks. The other banks have had a fairly good run today, as well as the insurance companies. Suncorp was up fairly strongly also. So general positivity coming through in that financial services sector.
Now, just focusing on a couple of stock specifics, David, on the move from news. NextDC updating just as far as, well, in particular, its Malaysia contract there, the data centre it's building.
Yes, some positive news there for NextDC. And it is a sector that, although the global discussion is about the requirement for massive data centres all around the world, the Australian data centres, NextDC, Digico, haven't done as well as far as the share price is concerned over the last 6 or 9 months or so. So, we might start to see a little bit more interest in those stocks. NextDC, as you said, are fairly dominant here in Australia with existing data centres all around our country, but then they raised some money late last year to move internationally, and that seems to be a positive move because obviously, data is the key as far as AI and every other business requirement around the world.
Now, another stock making news for all the wrong reasons. Monash IVF, goodness, the second major incident in terms of an issue with an embryo transplant. Look, as a result, stock's off by some 25% today.
Yeah, certainly disappointing announcement today. The company had previously come out with a bit of a downgrade as far as their earnings are concerned, partly related to their embryo issue that they had earlier in the year, and also partly due to a softening of activity through March and April. The encouraging thing was that the May data was starting to actually look a little bit more positive, but unfortunately, with today's announcement, I think the reputation of Monash IVF will be hurt fairly significantly, and that could lead to further downgrades from analysts. Not a good outlook for Monash IVF.
Disappointing indeed. David, good to wrap up the day. Thanks for joining us from Lords.
Thanks very much, Andrew.
All right, let's get to our stock of the day. In fact, that was Metcash, also updating the markets in fact, it's going to bring its audited results out a little later this month. But ahead of that, particularly it's talking about merging its hardware divisions there. So here's the view of Michael Wayne from Medallion Financial and Ray Chan from Morgans.
And today's update looks to suggest that management are trying to take steps to overcome some of the softness that's been playing out in the hardware space over the last 12 months or so. I think Metcash would probably view the fact that interest rates are falling, the potential for a housing market pickup could ultimately be a positive for them in that hardware business, as do-it-yourself type investors start to be a bit more active in that property space with fixing the house up and building granite flats, those kind of events which tend to improve the sentiment around hardware.
They certainly have strategies in place to execute. The first thing they do, of course, is to cut down the price on some of their own branded product, and they're likely to be accelerate in other areas, especially in automation. So I can certainly see, in terms of turnaround play, do I go for Metcash or Woolies? I certainly will go for Woolies, provided both supermarket, despite in a different scale and also different area. I think Woolies is potentially be a better buy than Metcash in this instance.
Let's get to the leaders and laggards in today's trade, and on the top of the list there's Zip, which does tend to mirror this broader sentiment we see on the market, so up more than 6%. Mesoblast, similar moves there, and some of those lithium stocks doing very well at the same time. Clarity is continuing to gain, up some 6%. NextDC, as we were talking about, benefiting too. On the negative side, and many of those being gold miners, in fact, with the gold price having come off, but also, as we were talking about there with David Lane, just a lot of this been pivotal on what we're hearing out of London, and with those talks underway between the US and China. At the smaller end of the market, Northern Minerals up 21%. Noble Oak also doing well, up by some 17%. Chalice also on the winners list there. And Star Entertainment, obviously, it's been very negative. It's been a woeful story if you've been a shareholder there, but shares are up some 9% in today's trade on the negative side in the smalls. Well, no surprise at Monash IVF, given its negative news today, down more than 25%. And some of the others in the minerals and gold space being hit. So to what's ahead overnight now, clearly the focus is on the outcome of those US-China trade talks taking place. Day 2, about to get underway in London. We'll also hear from President Trump, who's due to speak, and the Small Business Optimism Index out of the States will be released. Locally tomorrow, well, in fact, not locally at all. We can expect producer prices out of Japan expected to come in at around 3.5%. Let's recap then where we're finishing. Pretty close to the session highs, up 0.75%. That is the COB. Join us again tomorrow. Thanks for watching and listening.